sorry it took me that long. Sorry. Do we still time, energy for questions? Please, please.
Thank you for that. It was just a very fascinating talk. But still, I have a question. You are meeting the religion issue. Why that?
This is you probably heard this, so-called Occam razor, this kind of principle in historical Islam. I could add this dimension. It would be much complicated, but it wouldn't change radically my conclusion. See what I mean here? It would be more fascinating, without a doubt, more technically. But if I may add something here, a kind of touch. There's this religious approach here, religious dimension here. We had and still have, luckily enough, have a new development in Ukraine, emergence of the interprofessional dialogue. And probably the first sign of this dialogue was the emergence group which is called 1st of December. It's like a senior man, we call them moral authority. People who are former dissidents and leader of the churches. Those who have a most reliable in society. What a long introduction to a very short fact. All churches are joined this prior to the 1st of December, including the Ukrainian church of the Russian Patriarchate. Then it also happened in Eritrea in Maidan. All priests, without exception, has been on Maidan, plus rabbi, plus all imams, and did it articulated, and they were public shows, so to say, especially in terms of violence. It's violence. They came say. So I'm saying here, we have like a. It's not quite new, but now became very visible. There's a chances for interprofessional dialogue because it has been before. So to say.
Thank you also from my side for this fascinating talk. How would you explain the difference in the electorate between Poroshenko on one side and Yatsenyuk on the other side? You said now paradigm is not so much language or ethnicity, rather factors like age or like social networks. So what are the differences in your interpretation between the Yatsenyuk camp and the Poroshenko group?
Thank you for the question, thank you for a compliment. As I say, every compliment is a small grain of truth, and thank you for this small grain. You have also seen the composition of the list of the Yatsenyuk party and Poroshenko party. List of the Poroshenko party practically doesn't have any kind of the field officers from the military zone. While the list of the Yatsenyuk has been intentionally made as a party of war. It's like the heroes, and since they're very appealing, and this is my take on that, and they appeal to say very national terms like the national heroes, I believe it responds, resonates with the orange electorate. Again, it has to be taken cautiously, but as a matter of fact, finally, the final result, it was Poroshenko who was won the victory, because he made the majority. But on the party list, which is made of the list, it was Yatsenyuk that get by a slight margin, so to say. So what I'm saying here is look like Yatsenyuk is like a new reincarnation of Yulia Tymoshenko, but without this.
Well, not easy.
And by the way, it's true because he's very populist. He's very populist. He knows how to manipulate the public opinion. And he's very appealing to the orange electorate. But this is only my take. Please.
But come to the refugees, because in the first time of the Russian aggression, there were reports that refugees go to Russia. And nowadays there have only been reports that they flee within Ukraine to the west. Is there really a shift also in this respect? And is there also an idea behind it, or just a question, why is it easier to get help?
I don't really know because there's no reliable statistics.
Yeah.
It's very hard to just, but the bottom line is that majority went to Russia, minority to West. But again, why majority? It's not because of political reason, because the neighboring
It's
countries,
easier.
it's easier to get there. So West is mostly ideological motivated. And say, yeah, I'm working Catholic University, nowadays we have a quite diaspora from Donbass, from professors and students who came to the, they choose to do intentionally. And they basically Ukrainian speaking, by the way. And so what I'm saying here, that this is probably this one of my main distinction. For sure, there's kind of the family connections. They go where they have their families. And since Donbass is very much of the margin, not marginal region. It's very much this region is made by several layers of immigration from all over Ukraine. And since there are some connections, so they try to revive these connections by coming down. But interestingly enough, what we found now, that coming of the Donbass, people from Donbass from the West, revived Lviv, Donetsk animosities. There was a very strong animosity stereotypes against people coming from the Donbass, even they spoke in Ukraine. Because for them, they embodied Donbass. And second, the whole kind of stereotypes, they hiding themselves instead fighting for their territory, the kind of things. So this is something which is very troubling. Which also gives the idea of the kind of resistance of those to Ukrainians.
Thanks as well. I was just wondering, in your talk began, of course, in the Lviv, Donetsk, right? This is still kind of identity surveys, and I understand it all. It's of course legitimate, and it can be written on, right, by making surveys again and again. I'm just wondering, how does the war change the whole thing? Because that might. And in military terms, of course, if you look on this map, this is not very acquiescing, I have to say, right? Parts of the territory being surrounded. I mean, if I just think about interwar Poland and, geographic situations, military terms. But the other issue is, if you then have the real strain of war, right? This rockets like yesterday, but also then many sons are drafted and put into the army, and then a certain percentage of course dies. You don't have major success on the military front, obviously, for known reasons. How would you say has that already changed this, let's call it games of identity? Because, that still can be very fluid, and here and there you vote sometimes this way, sometimes the other way. Different voting patterns, you have them in Germany, in many countries, right? But this is not something different, maybe, right? But I'm wondering, it's...
thank you so much for it. The answer has several layers. First of all, sociological surveys. Before the start of Russian Spring, the Ukrainian social scientists, which are very smart, they did surveys just to fix what was the public opinion before the military action started. They didn't want to know this on a large scale. So they started every single region in Ukraine, and they really found out that the strongest separatist tendencies are in Donbass. But again, they will make the majority, relative majority, up to 35% in Donbass, which is for separation. Whatever they mean by separation, but they mean separation. So say, either from Ukraine and from Maidan, it's really that definite. There was another group, which is a very visible group, some 30 persons, which stands for the Ukraine, for remaining Ukraine, and there is a large group in between, which are undecided. So there were three groups. What happened, these were our readings of the further developments with migration. Those who were separatists, they remained. Those are Ukrainians, they migrated. And mostly those are in the middle. So I'm trying to say here, I believe, it's my guess, you have now solidifying of the Russian identity in Donbass, whatever it means again. Because of this new demography, plus war, it's not just, it used to be language of hatred, now it's more than language of hatred, it's just hatred. And they very much hate Ukrainian army because they keep Ukrainian army responsible for their suffering, for victims. So we are trying to make another survey. We know whether it will be next year, but we expect there will be very strong kind of identity there. Whether we Donetsk or Russia, we don't know, but this might be a very strong identity, and probably they will be very anti-Ukrainian terms. So this is the first layer. The second layer, it's very hard to do any kind of field studies there. So we and all some other people, we keep interviewing people who is migrating from there, on those who, soldiers, officers who came from short stay home. And they give very complicated picture. So basically their message is it depends what city we are talking, or town we are talking about, when the war started, and what was the results of the war, damages made by the war. Say with this simple idea. Those who coming from the Baltimore, which is one of the towns of the bus, say that there is a very strong anti-Ukrainian feeling there, actually hatred. It's very hard for them to stay there because they feel there is no support for the local population. But you move several kilometers from there to Kramatorsk, there is a very strong support for the Ukrainian army, and basically structure is the same. Probably the main difference is that Kramatorsk was saved from the war. The whole one was at the very beginning, so they were not damaged by the war. And they want to have a kind of stability, so they support the army because they don't want to divide the war. While in the Baltimore, there's already war going for several weeks. There's a lot of the victims and like that. And that issue Mariupol. Mariupol is divided, but with Ukrainian majority. Again, it's not quite Ukrainian majority. They choose Ukrainian because from them Ukraine means stability. I mean, not to be in the Donetsk Republic. It's just as the war, it's another deprivation. Being in the Donetsk Republic means deprivation, having no money, no medicines, or the kind of things you say. So, put it, if I may, very simply. I believe that the main change came with Putin. With the Russian Spring, probably it's the most stupid thing that Putin could do. Because it really solidified divisions in Ukraine, but not quite as Putin would accept. Because nowadays people are choosing Ukraine not because Ukraine is Ukrainian, because choosing Ukraine means no war. They understand the front, so to say. So this, I believe, explains a lot with this dynamics with this argument.
Thank you very much. First, I have two questions. One question, if we try to extrapolate these tendencies, what's going on today to the middle-term future? I don't know, in 10 years, do you think this map of identities is going to change significantly? Vasily Rasevich recently published an article claiming that the war is a kind of modernizing factor for Ukraine. So, quite controversial, I would say. And in this sense, do you think that this kind of completely new situation when Ukraine has become a melting pot, you have like refugees going from the east to other cities, you have people caring for wounded soldiers in Kharkiv, or soldiers from western Ukraine. But this kind of, all kinds of Ukrainians kind of learning each other in a very new situation. If not to speak about young people and how they perceive what's going on and what kind of implications it will have for Ukraine, for Ukrainian society in 10 years, let's say. So what do you think? This is one question. And second question, you started writing about reconciliation some years ago, long before we had any war on the horizon. So how do you see the prospects of reconciliation?
Frankly speaking, I don't have answer to either of those two questions. First, because I'm a historian, I'm not a prophet. So 10 years for me is, day for me it's kind of very hard to deal with this. But I believe what Vasily Savage does interpolates the experience of the First World War. which was very explosive for Ukrainian identity. As a matter of fact, to a large extent, Ukrainian identity is a result of the First World War. For the right reason to explain, should extrapolate this kind of the scheme? I don't know, maybe yes, but maybe not. Because the war is still there. It's too early to judge. My guess is, it's not my guesses, but many people like me, this war is for long. So we may expect anything, because you know, war is very explosive. In terms of identity, it's very explosive. It depends what will be developments. Most unfortunately, how should I say? I have no doubt about Lviv. I have no doubt about Kyiv. Most probably I don't have doubt nowadays about Dnipropetrovsk, because it looks very, very solid. But I still would have some problems, look very closely to Kharkiv and to Odessa, probably Zaporizhia as well, so to say. Still, this will be more important visions to see what will be dynamics, because this city would give you the idea. Just my take, again, it's my experience, because I have very close connections with Odessa. I know there is a very strong anti-Putin sentiments with Odessa. They're not pro-Ukrainian, but there's anti-Putin, which is already now, because it provides with some space. They dislike Putin very, very strong. And by the way, Saris also showed that. That before the Maidan, Putin was one of the most popular persons in Ukraine. Nowadays, he's one of the most hated. It just took several months to change the dramatically. But say, given the different, given the recent elections, say, I wouldn't know what will be with Poroshenko in a few months, in a few weeks. Because nobody think about Poroshenko as the president a year ago. It's very fluid, especially the war. So I believe there will be some Ukraine. I do believe, and I wish, that Ukraine will preserve, according to some international order, will somehow come up, return to international orders, which means preservation of Ukraine as it is. But I'm very afraid about the price. I don't want to talk about the price. First of all, I do not profit, and secondly, because I'm afraid the price will be relatively high. Secondly, about the constellation, I don't know it anymore. But I know for sure that recent appointments in the Yatsenyuk cabinet does show their stroke for reconciliation. I'm talking about Petrovich, and more specifically Kirilenko, they entering in the former Yushchenko line. And it's very sad, because those who are responsible for ideology is like a rehearsal of what's been already in Yushchenko, and I believe it's a very bad sign, because they try to promote Bandera, they try to promote UPA, which is unbelievably stupid. I'm talking with these people who on the phone, they say it doesn't matter. People don't think about Bandera anymore. They think about different things, but they believe this is the right time to promote their own agenda, so to say. So I'm rather skeptical about this issue, because I don't really believe who will continue this kind of dialogue. Poroshenko had a lot of hope with the connected, but nowadays Poroshenko is following his popularity, who will be, but whether he managed to preserve at least some of his popularity that he was doing before. So actually, therefore I'm saying, I'm returning what I'm saying. I don't know the answer to each of these questions. I'm very sorry about it.
You mentioned briefly when you were describing the political shift in Dnipropetrovsk, you were pointing at the oligarchs. And I'm asking whether this is not even more important than you indicated, because, I mean, Dnipropetrovsk is the big winner of this situation. They ousted the Yanukovych Donbass clan, and now it's kind of they got what they wanted. And so isn't the oligarchy moment more important than we might see on...
It's crucial. It's probably not important, but it's crucial. Because otherwise there will be developments. We see them here, it's become more, again, add some complication here, which will have the main result. I see oligarchs and Kolomoisky specifically as a factor, but not the factor. Why I'm telling that? Because Dnipropetrovsk is a very specific region. It's the only region in Ukraine where capital region was different from the region itself. Region always have, again, very strong support for Yanukovych, why Donetsk was always, the Dnipropetrovsk was always orange. And the most orange part of the Dnipropetrovsk is the business center. It's not again because of patriotic feelings, it's because they feel threatened. I know it because I've been there for 204. There are a lot of stories about that, some kind of stereotypes, but basically this is middle business. And middle business in terms of Donetsk, Dnipropetrovsk, in terms of Lviv, which is a very poor city, with black and real oligarchs, because that's a very rich city. So middle business strongly stood against Yanukovych. So I presume that Kolomoisky was a part of this move, only to a different extent. For sure, he's now entering the field because he wants to suppress and surpass Akhmetov. But he uses the local move, which has already been there, so to say. So actually, you have to play these two factors. Not just Kolomoisky. Kolomoisky was very important to preserve loyalty of the region. The region was not loyal. Probably not Kolomoisky, probably part of Dnipropetrovsk would join the Donetsk Republic. But there's no doubt that Dnipropetrovsk itself, per se, would be on the other side. Are we tired? Are you ready to say goodbye? So thank you so much.